What's up, and welcome to my first Decktech. My name is Spike. I'm here to show you how to grind through your next tour. And I'm going to start by doing that with Vampire Tribal in Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan Standard. Now, I'm no scrub, but Timmy keeps making me, keeps demanding that I build him a sweet deck for Standard. And I decided, well, if he's going to go scrub it up, I might as well make sure that he goes and scrubs it up with the best of them. So we're going to start off with, what do I even write down here? I made this in like 5 minutes. Yeah, this is not your average cookie cutter deck either. This is a aggro mid-range toolbox deck. And it rewards you for playing more vampires and sticking to your tribe. And it actually gives you a lot of ways to shift gears and do lots of things that you're going to see in a second. All decks on this channel are not meant to conform to the typical deck construction templates that we all know. I subscribe to the theory that these deck types are just crutches and we should change the way we look at deck building in general. This deck plays efficient low drops to overwhelm and prevent the opponent from having enough turns to get out anything that can outclass our creatures. Turn 3.5 is the earliest kill we can get through, assuming that we are on the play. If not, it's turn 4, and this is pretty consistent. We're running a lot of 4 drops. So 3.5 or 4 is not unheard of and is actually something fairly regular. If we feel like we're getting disrupted too frequently, we can shift gears by slow rolling, trade up when possible, and peck our opponents for damage using our flyers. And heck, why not? Also, we do incidental drains. Our sideboard will help with this by transitioning our deck into a more interactive deck that can outvalue others while disrupting our opponent. For starters, we're going to use 8 strong 1-drops, 4 Sky Marcher Aspirates, and 4 Vicious Conquistadors. There, put that there. Johnny, do it. There we go. There. These are some of the best 1-drops in the format right now. Sky Marcher Aspirant is a Savannah Lines that flies in the late game, assuming that we have the City's Blessing. Not too hard to get, actually. Conquistadors is practically a 2/2. This is part of the evasion I meant to talk about earlier, with the pecking in for damage. One can fly in the late game if we need, giving us a clock and getting those final desperation swings. The other one can get in for that during the desperation swing for that 1 damage, 1 life loss, the last second, along with any other incidental drains, as you'll see in a second. Follow this up with a pair of Lords, 4 Legion Lieutenants, 3 Metallic Mimics as backup if our lieutenants are AWOL. The Mimics are our second option. If you have either one in hand, cast the Lieutenants if you can. They give that anthem effect to all of our guys immediately. It allows us to play. It allows us to buff the 1-drops that we may have played earlier. That's why it's more important if we're going for the much quicker game. If we're planning to go the long game, go with Metallic Mimic. The +1/+1 counter will stay on even if it's removed, and that actually makes us more resilient to removal and getting blown out when people blow up our lieutenants, while having blockers on board that are just big enough to eat one of our guys. 2 Gifted Aetherborns, because if you haven't seen Gifted Aetherborn, it's Vampire Nighthawk, but it costs 1 less. It costs 2 black mana. It's a 2/3 with Death Touch and Lifelink, and just the idea of a Carnage Tyrant swinging in to our 2/3 and us just going, take 2 damage. Sure, yeah, we'll trade our 2/3 for your 7/6, all that bad stuff. $20 card for 25 cents? Yeah. Go up 4 mana? Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. The key to this deck is a playset of 4 runners. It allows a lot of room for singleton threats and tools, with a small +1/+1 buff till end of turn for playing a vampire. It allows us to stay on the more aggressive, shorter game plans while getting out things that will usually help us get around things like disruption. In many cases, you'll see in 1 second when I start listing these off. Alright, first up we got Maverick Fane for when we need to leave behind a bunch of chump blockers when we go wide. We're afraid on crackbacks. Leaving behind a Maverick Fane and a 1-1 lifelinker can actually help a lot of the time with retaliation swings. One Yahenni for removal heavy games full of creatures we might have to slam into. Remember, it does have haste. Timmy, that's for you. That note is for you, Timmy. This creature has haste. You can attack as soon as it enters the battlefield. You can attack. It matters. 4 Sadistic Sky Marchers for the. And by the way, the Sadistic Sky Marcher is probably not one of your likely tutor targets or one of the singletons. It's a full playset. And it is there for the added evasion lifelink in a game. We need just to get through and apply pressure in the air while slow rolling threats. And in games where we're afraid of settle, having that Sadistic Sky Marcher continually just poke in and drain them for 2, us gain 2, does apply pressure, does give us a good clock, and it's actually just a good removal sponge sometimes. Just like forcing them to have to get at it, to have to hit the flyer and leave other things intact. Let's see what else is in here. Oh yeah, and the life gain on it is very important for the sideboard tech that we have coming up. I'll get into that in 1 second. Use Holy Horses. At 4 on the curve is our finisher and 2 more toolbox singles. A pair of Sanctum Seekers are the final pieces that we need to finish that 3.5 kill. When a vampire we control attacks, we drain our opponents, each opponent, for 1 life, and we gain 1 life for each attacking vampire. Not just the Seeker. Timmy. Alright, we've got 1 Twilight Prophet, it's a 2/4 flyer, and if we have the Sitting's Blessing, it drains them during our upkeep for an extra card that we put in our hand, and we actually can just get in for that too. In these slower games, a lot of times after post-board wipe, we may require something like this just to help us as a finisher. It doesn't seem like a very aggressive creature, but when you get a 2-drop off that as your extra card, refilling your hand, draining them for 2, keeping you in the game, and then hitting them for another 2, that's a pretty good clock. And a lot of times on average, this will drain our opponent in the longer games for sometimes 4 or 5 on average before finishing them off. 1 Bishop of Binding. Nice Scarab God there. Let me show you a better way to use that. Exile the god and hit them with the Bishop. The buff is nuts if you can put it on a Sky Marcher. Either of the Sky Marchers, they both have flying in the late, so it's just great. You also can use this against Hazard, certain other gods. Most of them really aren't played too much, but on occasion you will just see like a random Raunos, the Indomitable, just floating around, and you might need this to clear him out of the way. Remember, he is a creature, even though you may not meet his conditions. He's not like the other gods from Theros. You can still target him with the Bishop. And on top of our curb is the other Bishop, the Bishop of Rebirth, as our last singleton for Forerunner to get. It's no Sun Titan, but it hits the Forerunner for more gas, Sky Marcher for a life swing each turn to rebalance the clock, or Gifted Aetherborn to just say, keep off the grass. You know what's in the grass. Keep off. See these planes? You know what's hidden here. Give him that look to me. Just give him the look. Just the, are you sure? And really just like slowly push the Gifted Aetherborn in front of their creature, like till they touch. Timmy, remember, Forerunner gets you what you need to finish the game. It counts as any additional chance to find any card you want for the first time, usually. You want that 3.5 kill if possible. The recipe is turn 1, any of our 1-drops, not Fatal Push. Turn 2, Legion Lieutenant, not Metallic Mimic, go with Lieutenant. This is important. Turn 3, Forerunner getting Seeker, and turn 4, draw, play Seeker, then kill The 3 drains will come off of the Seeker when you attack with Forerunner, the 1-drop, and Lieutenant. It will get them with Exacxies. If not, go for the slow kill. Just go for the slow kill. Just keep jumping, keep getting in with that Sky Marcher, sadistic Sky Marcher. The continual pegging of them through the air. Keep in mind, at that point in the game, they're probably not going to be at full life anymore. They really shouldn't. They should be at less than 10. And sadistic Sky Marcher, any of our Sky Marchers, is really just a 5-turn clock. A lot of times lower if we're doing really like actual desperation swings and coming in. And if we have a Sanctum Seeker out, it's really just draining. It's really getting them for 3. We're only running a little main deck removal in the form of a set of Fatal Pushes and 2 Walk the Planks. Walk the Planks is kind of close to our catch-all. Fatal Push is just to get early blockers out of the way as needed. Don't be too aggressive with it. Usually save it for things when you just need to get in that final desperation swing. Make sure your guys are safe sometimes, so they can swing more frequently. Let's see, what else? Yeah, let's get into the mana base. We're running 22 lands. You can adjust it. I felt like 22 was a little bit was just right because Forerunner does tutor for that 4th creature, the Sanctum Seeker typically, and that will guarantee that we are not drawing a land as our 3rd or 4th draw. So we want to start with a little bit land heavier hands, maybe 3 lands, 4 lands sometimes, if everything else just seems perfect in the hand. But we really want to stick with that 3 lands and 4 creatures typically. We're gonna go with the 4 Concealed Courtyards, black-white fast land. Gotta have it in an aggro deck, just gotta have it. And as our generic tribal land that we absolutely need, 4 Unclaimed Territories, naming Vampire of course, 3 Plains, 4 Swamps, 3 Ifnir Deadlands for removal, just in case we need it, just in case we need to slow them down. Sometimes having a Ripjaw Raptor be shrunk down just enough to be eaten by a Sanctum Seeker or something else is necessary. It's worth stopping for a second, leaving flyers in the air, and keeping them down, and keeping them on the defense. That's where we want them. 2 Sheffet Dunes for a little extra push in the last few swings to help us close out the game. And 1 Field of Ruin and 1 Scavenger Grounds. I prefer to have some main board hate. Plus our deck is very flexible in terms of mana base. We're only running 2 colors and there's plenty of duals in this deck. We actually don't need all of our colored mana all the time in this deck. You could probably end up cutting maybe swamps or plains, mixing and matching some of this stuff depending on your local meta. I would actually prefer, personally, I would prefer swapping out the Scavenger Grounds for an additional copy of Field of Ruin, just because, God, Field of Ruin is so cool. God, can we get a bigger, like a bigger close-up? Yeah, just over me. That's fine. Just a bigger graphic of Field of Ruin would be sweet. Oh, there we go. Oh, that feels nice. But there is that Dimir deck with Scarab God in standard right now, so probably keep the Scavenger Grounds in. Maybe go down the Field of Ruin. Not a lot of decks are playing these specialty legendary lands, things that turn into the legendary lands. So Field of Ruin right now is probably less necessary than Scavenger Ground. Maybe go down the Field of Ruin, go up 1 Scavenger Ground. Finally, our sideboard Decktech. We have a transformational sideboard. Allows us to get a little bit more interactive, as mentioned before, and be a little bit more disruptive. We're going to start with the two copies of Arterial Flow. Clean 2 for 1 that drains them for 2. We gain 2 if we control a vampire. So basically any creature in this deck. literally the only creature that we have that does not say the word vampire on it is Metallic Mimic. And Metallic Mimic always says vampire when we play it. So any creature, just any creature in play, we drain for 2. 2 duress to pull wraths from our opponent's hands, and sometimes annoying combo pieces. 1 Ixalan's Binding, or one of the other 4-drop white removal pieces, white removal enchantments in Standard right now. Depending on your meta, you might want to switch them up. If there's combo decks running around, I understand if you don't want to play Ixalan's Binding, and you may need more things like that Gideon's enchantment card or whatever. And sometimes you may need faster removal. Holding up the removal sometimes may be required, so you might want to go with the Flash enchantment from Almond-Cat. Also cycles for when you need to hit that land drop. Either any of those can go in this spot. Profane Processions for catch-all answers, and for the value that Processions gets us, isn't bad when we're using it against Gear Hulks or Scarab Gods in play, turning them to play for us. 2 Gifted Aetherborns, because Gifted Aetherborn. It's Gifted Aetherborn. I see Carnage Tyrant and I raise you a 2/3. Want to trade? The full set of Oathsworn Vampires actually pair very well with the incidental life gain in this deck, which we have plenty of. We have let's see, enough. We have enough sources to consistently trigger it. It does enter tapped, making it a very slow creature, but continuous chump blockers that we can offer for trades upward that we can constantly recur over and over again. Remember, those flyers and those drains really do add up. Let's see, 1 more Field of Ruin, 1 Scavenger Grounds. You can, again, you can mix and match these in the main deck. You can start with the 2 Scavenger, leave the 2 Field of Ruin in the side, or you can go down to 1 Field of Ruin in the sideboard if you need it. To help with the further interactions that we may need, 1 extra copy of Twilight Prophet, just in case the first one gets removed. This is a very powerful late game card, and this can actually just drive us forward for the remainder of a game after a post-board wipe. And I want to make that very clear that this is a clock, and this does refuel our hand at the same time and drain our opponent. It can be responsible for 4 or 5 life point swings each turn while getting us another card. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. This deck is actually pretty cheap from what I found for standard decks. It's only $158 right now, last I checked. Don't forget to leave a comment if you like this video. And if you want to make a splash at your F&M with this, I would recommend definitely play test it a couple times against your friends to get the hang of it. Don't just expect to go with this deck and just pilot it like a pro or whatever. It's a lot of decks, pretty much all decks, there's a lot of finesse to them. Really sit down with your friends at home or at your game store before getting into that local little F&M tournament, and just sort of practice against some of their decks. See when they're ready to settle. See what it's like. What moves that they are making right before they fumigate. Just watch how they're playing. And one of the parts of aggro decks that is the most challenging is understanding when they are holding back a Wrath. When is it okay to go all out at them, knowing that they have nothing? When is it the proper time to actually slow roll? Because slow rolling your threats does give your opponent that extra turn more times than not. It can give them several extra turns to stabilize, but going all out at them can lower their can get you blown out and get them massive card advantage just by playing 1 Wrath spell. So just remember that. Like, comment, and subscribe below if you're scrubbing standard. And tell me what you think about this deck. Do you hate my face? And I will be back with an upgrade for this deck. I'll leave links in the comments below if you like this deck for upgrades for Dominaria. There's a couple of cards that I have my eye on in there. A couple of sagas that I thought were pretty interesting. And a couple of cards that, might be alright. They might be alright. I am excited for Dominaria. I know Frank's excited for Dominaria. Jaya! Karn! We hear you, Frank. We all hear you. And that's it. No face touch on this channel. No face touch.